Okay, hold on. 1 second, gang. Set this up properly. Mics. I need to think of maybe a better spot to put it. It's a little in the way. It's okay though. It's okay. It's got like a swivel thing, right? So I complain, but I could just, if I don't want, like, I could sit it over here, right, and get really quiet, or I can get really loud and put it right in front of my face. Overall, happy with it. Happy with the quality. At least no one's complained about it yet, audio-wise. If there is a problem with it, though, please let me know, and I will do my best to kind of mess with it and fix things. Mr. 𝕶𝖓, welcome to the stream. How are you today? I hope you are doing well. Welcome. We are going to be talking about a wide variety of topics today. So sit back and enjoy, and we'll see how long this goes. I was not sure if I was going to stream today, but you know what? I was sitting there, I was like, I ain't doing nothing, right? Like, I wasn't in the mood for video games or anything, so you know what? Turn on some stream, get my thoughts out there, talk a little bit. We had some big announcements today. SCOTUS, the Supreme Court of the United States, dropped its ruling on the Colorado ballot thing. Do you guys remember that at all? So what was it, back in December? I believe it was December, maybe November, but I'm pretty sure it was December. Colorado's Supreme Court ruled that Donald Trump was ineligible to be on the ballot. And in that ruling, they cited the Section 14, the 14th Amendment, I believe, of the United States Constitution, and based their reasoning on that. And it went to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court heard arguments for and against, and it was unanimously, in a 9-0 decision, turned down. Now, here's a fun thing about the SCOTUS, right? Most decisions that SCOTUS makes are unanimous, right? I don't know about most, but a larger amount than you would think are either 8-1 or 9-0. It's the really divisive ones, right? It's the really, like, crunchy ones that are usually pretty close, 6-3, 5-4, etc. But today they were pretty goddamn clear, right? I had a show on this back in December. We had Pisco on, we had Lactoid, we had Jebtan, Josiah came on from Pondering Politics, and they discussed the both the legal ramifications of this as well as the cultural ones. It's an interesting discussion. Go back and view it if you like, and especially given what we know now and the arguments made by the United States Supreme Court now. I think that, like, when we have these discussions, it's difficult for me because I'm not a lawyer. I'm not versed in law. I told Lactoid this the other day. I was talking with him on history, I believe. But it's one of those things where there is a lot of legalese involved in the ruling. There's a lot of it's based on case law, it's based on precedent, it's based on interpretation, and I am just not familiar enough with those things to be able to give you any kind of educated take on legalese stuff. I just can't. But I can tell you my views as a normie, right? My intuition, my instinct, for what that's worth. Okay. it's not worth a lot when it comes to the actual rulings itself, but when it comes to like the how it will be received and how it might change or not change the trajectory of political discussion, that I can weigh in on. At the time, I was skeptical. Again, if you go back, I had legit questions for people like Pisco. The idea that a state can simply remove someone from the ballot feels undemocratic. It feels wrong. Again, I acknowledge that there might be instances where they can and should even, right? I think that if you aren't eligible to run, if you weren't a natural born citizen, or the other rules, like if you aren't old enough or what have you, I think, yeah, in those instances, a state can and should control who is on their ballot. However, when it comes to the Trump decision, especially since nothing had been decided in courts yet, right? Like he hadn't been convicted of anything yet. I think it was probably wise for SCOTUS to forbid states from being able to just willy-nilly remove people from their ballots like that. I think it was probably the right call. Again, not a legal scholar, so again, legal precedent, I don't know, right? Like they may have had an actual case. Turns out the Supreme Court didn't think so, but it is what it is. Bill Bradley says 2 people have been disqualified from federal office under Section 3. In both cases, Congress refused to see. It was not state enforcement. Fair enough. Thank you for the information. I did not know that. Artemis Fowl says I will be around in about 30 minutes. Well, I look for you to be around. Our Aircraft Sparky says it was a base decision. Mr. Square Peg says I am not happy with the SCOTUS ruling. Mr. Square Peg, what were your contentions with the ruling? I'm just very curious. I have the ruling up if you guys want to look over it. I don't know how exciting that will be, but I do have the ruling up. I've gone through the intro, right? Like I haven't read the whole decision yet, but I've gone through the intro. To be clear though, again, I want to just reiterate, I am not a lawyer. I don't know the law well enough to be able to tell you if this was a good decision or a bad decision. I'm too ignorant when it comes to the law to really be able to give you a perspective from that angle. I'm just being honest with you, gang. I don't know what to tell you on that. I just can't. Firechild says, is it just me or is stream not working? Is the stream not working? Gang, can you not hear me? How are we doing over on Twitch land? Can you guys see and hear me? It's working for Square Peg. What about YouTube land? YouTube, are we going good? Streams A+ here from Bruco. Okay, well, it looks like it's working. Oops, we'll probably get off of that for now. Yeah, it looks like it's working. I don't know what to tell you, Firechild. I hope you can fix it. Man, that's sad. We can hear you. You can see me. Everything's good. Yeah, Firechild, looks like a you problem, unfortunately. Hopefully you can fix that. The new mic is great from Zero Fox. Thank you. Cameraman 502 says, I'm not sure if SCOTUS could give an answer in Trump's favor without giving some idea of procedure. So I'm not sure what the concurrences would expect. Bill Bradley says Section 5 to the 14th seems relatively straightforward, to be honest. Again, though, as a layman reading these things, I understand that it can be interpreted in multiple different ways, right? There are different ways to look at even seemingly straightforward, simple statements when it comes to law. Again, I'm just not educated enough in precedent to be able to give you that. However, I will say this. I think that it is good that Trump will be on the ballot in 2024. Not because I want Trump to win. In fact, the exact opposite. I'd like him to lose and lose hard. I'd like him to lose so badly that there is no question in anyone's mind that the American people reject him. But that's exactly why I want him on the ballot, because he needs to be beaten at the ballot box. The American people need to have their voice heard and signal to politicians that you cannot behave and act like President Trump does and expect to win the presidency. You cannot have the positions which he advocates for and holds and expect to win the presidency. And I understand that a lot of you out there might disagree with me on this. I have several Trump voters and Trump fans in my audience, and that's okay, right? That's why we're all allowed to vote, right? We're all allowed to have our voice, have our say. But yeah, I think you're wrong. And I want to show you that the American public also thinks you're wrong. And that's why I think that overall, at least setting legal arguments aside and simply going based on my instinct and based on what I think is politically expedient, I think having him on the ballot is a good thing. And so I tentatively agree with the Supreme Court. Mr. Squarepreg says, so the Trump attorneys did a crap job defending Trump in this case, while the people for kicking Trump off the ballot did an excellent job arguing their case. It lowers the bar and empowers the right wing. Again, I didn't watch the arguments. I don't know about that. I can't speak to the strength of the arguments. However, it looks to be, at least on the legal grounds, a 9-0 ruling it's pretty clear. Nair says, don't you think we should change the UN name to United Nations of the United States of America, less people know the pecking order? I don't know if we're going to discuss the UN today. We might. Has the UN done anything worth discussing recently? Gene says you should ask Omar about anti-Semitism. I might bring him in for that segment. No lie. We'll see when we get to that part. But we're doing the Supreme Court stuff first. I think it's worth looking at the reaction as well. Give me 1 second. Let me find the tweet because I think it's worth looking at. Give me 1 second here. Let me find it. Man, I need to organize better, gang. So you guys aren't just waiting when I'm looking for things. Here we go. Here's the tweet I wanted to show you. Let's see if we can get this up. Oh, it's too low. Hold on. Oh, I'm so bad at streaming. So bad. My haters were right, gang. My haters were right. Let's get it up. Hold on. Here we go. Can you guys see that? Is this legible? Is this readable? Let's read what 𝕾𝖍𝖎𝖙 has to say about the Supreme Court ruling today. Do you guys know? Do you guys remember who this guy is? Right? If you're young, if you're about in your 20s, you might not remember this guy. Okay, he used to be he used to run a segment on MSNBC back in the Bush days. Okay, during the Iraq War and all that. I'm not sure when he stopped having his segment. I stopped listening to him a while ago. But he was kind of the lefty guy back in the day. He was like very big in the discourse, heavy in the leftist kind of perspective, or at least the much more left-leaning than you would normally see. He was very anti-Republican. He's very anti-Bush. So that's who this is. So let's read what he has to say about the Supreme Court decision today. Okay, here we go. The Supreme Court has betrayed democracy. Its members, including Jackson, Kagan, and Sotomayor, have proved themselves inept at reading comprehension. And collectively, the court has shown itself to be corrupt and illegitimate. It must be dissolved. Later in Goat says he's a former hack from ESPN. I didn't know that. Fair enough. Okay. I just remember him from MSNBC. Gang, can we not do this as leftists, as left-leaning people? Can we not do this? Right? Every time the Supreme Court makes a ruling that we disagree with, can we not throw a fit and then call for its absolute destruction? It doesn't help us beat the allegations of us being anti-American. It doesn't help us beat the allegations of us being authoritarians who wanting to just basically have our way, and if we don't get our way, to destroy whatever's in our way. It doesn't help. It doesn't help at all. If you have an argument as to why you think the Supreme Court decision is bad, that's fair. That's fine. You don't have to agree with the Supreme Court decision. You don't. Again, I'm not a lawyer. I can't really argue, right, on the law on this. I don't know if 𝕾𝖍𝖎𝖙 a lawyer. Maybe he is. Maybe I missed that. Maybe he's a deeply versed constitutional scholar, and I'm just not aware of it. It's possible. It's possible. But I don't know. What's with people who aren't like lawyers having such strong opinions on a ruling like this? I don't understand it. I don't get it. But more power to him, I guess. I want people to be clear, okay? Institutions may not always go our way. You may not always agree with the results of a given institution, right? It happens. And to be clear, not all institutions are good. There are some institutions that get in the way. There are some institutions which are a problem and need to be either reformed or just gotten rid of. However, the Supreme Court is not one of those institutions. The judicial branch of the United States government is, I don't know if I want to say necessary exactly, but it's very important in the way we do business in the United States of America politically. I am old enough to remember, right, back in the day. $5 from Juju to say, keep up the good work. Well, thanks, King. I appreciate you. It's your first super on a live stream. Let's celebrate. Let's celebrate that. Thank you for the $5. I appreciate it. But back to my little rant here. Yeah, it's I'm old enough to remember back when it was people like, I don't want to get this wrong, so I won't name specific names, but a lot of right-wing commentators, a lot of right-wing politicians and right-wing, just the right wing in general, thought of the Supreme Court as bad, as something to be gotten rid of. What 𝕾𝖍𝖎𝖙 called for is something that Rush Limbaugh would have called for 20 to 30 years ago. Because the court traditionally has a long and storied history of BTFOing unconstitutional laws that right-wing people try to pass, right? Again, it sometimes BTFOs left-wing laws that lefties try to pass. That happens too. But again, for decades, there was a time where many in the right wing just saw the courts as illegitimate and as an affront to all that is good and holy in America. They were fools for that, by the way. They were foolish. We mocked them. We made fun of them for that, and rightly so. Let's not become them, gang. Let's not take up that mantle. What? If you disagree with the Supreme Court ruling, that's fine. It's okay. They're not all going to go your way. What's important is the process. And we have to really make a distinction between process and results. A good process can sometimes get bad results. That happens. But a good process over time consistently will deliver better results than a process that we cobble together just to get specific results. Does that make sense? Are we tracking here? Are we understanding Are we picking up what I'm putting down? Only Mr. Bell says, no, we called for certain members to focus on the Constitution, not on treating it as a living document. Come on, Mr. Bill. I was alive in the 90s. I know what you guys called for. Not all of you, of course. Just like not all leftists are trashing this Supreme Court right now. But some of them are, such as 𝕾𝖍𝖎𝖙. And we are going to mock the shit out of them for it. The Supreme Court is a great institution. It has its issues. It's not perfect by any means. And we could talk about maybe reforms to certain practices and methodologies that the Supreme Court has. I am open to hearing arguments on term limits. I don't know if I agree with them, right? But I am open to hearing arguments on maybe instead of a lifetime appointment, maybe it being 20 years, and then there's some very stringent laws on protecting the sanctity of the institution from lobbying and things. Maybe something like that, right? I can imagine having that discussion because we've had that discussion before here on WhickTV, okay? We've argued that, we've thought about that, we've talked about that. That has happened, absolutely. But to argue, oh my God, okay. When a ruling comes down and it doesn't go your way, to argue for dissolving the Supreme Court just looks terrible, right? Optically, it looks like you're a whiny little bitch. It does. It looks like you're a whiny little bitch who didn't get their way, so you're a baby and you're going to cry and bawl tears about it, okay? That's what it looks like. 2, or B, I started with A and then went to 2. B, it's simply not true. Dissolving the Supreme Court will be a nightmare. It would be a nightmare for civil rights. It would be a nightmare for the trans rights. I think that the court system is there. It is designed by nature to be undemocratic, right? It is there to act as a guardrail against popular laws that would strip away people's rights. And there have been times in history where, unfortunately, the Supreme Court has failed in their duty. They just have. You can look at the 1885 decisions they had on civil rights. I think it was 1885. They had a plethora of cases on it. They failed, and they failed back then. They failed. However, in recent years, and I'm talking the last 100 or so, maybe the last 75, they have progressively gotten better at this. They're not perfect by any means, and they still, again, sometimes are a little too corporatist for my blood. But overall, at least as it stands now, today, okay, the Supreme Court and the court system in general going the way of the dodo is going to hurt leftist causes much more than it helps them. Much more than it helps them. Look at all the states who would pass just the most dog shit legislation on free speech and trans rights that you could ever think of, okay? The Supreme Court is there to stop that from happening. Now, again, will they? I don't know, but that's what they're designed to do. So, for example, a lot of the anti-First Amendment laws that have been passed by in Florida by DeSantis, I'm hoping that when they go through the Supreme Court, and I think a few of them are up for it, they'll get struck down. I'm hoping. I'm crossing my fingers on that. That's what should happen. Will it? I'm not sure. We'll see. Zero Fuck says SCOTUS is going to last as long as the country. Aircraft Sparky says Pisco is a bar certified attorney who has some of the worst interpretations ever. I mean, look, again, I can't really judge if Pisco. I can't judge his interpretations. I'm not a lawyer, right? I don't know. What's Twitch chat looking at? Twitch, are you guys just arguing with each other? Fair enough. Leitner and Goat says, you are arguing state rights after condemning Texas for putting up razor wire. No way are you a serious person. It's almost as if different circumstances require different ways to look at things. And I think I'm perfectly consistent in my, at least in this, right? We're all hypocrites in something, but not in this. In this, I think that, yeah, I criticize a state for taking down razor wire or for putting up razor wire, not based on the legality of it, but on the morality of it. Most of my arguments, I can't think of a single one off the top of my head. Most of my arguments are not from a legal perspective. They're from a moralistic perspective, a perspective on what is the right thing to do based on my moral systems. What? Razor wire is inanimate. It has no morality. Yeah, no shit, Sherlock, but the people putting it up or taking it down definitely do, and that's what I'm judging, right? Razor wire is a tool. I'm not against the use of the tool in the proper circumstances. My contention is this might not be the proper circumstances for it. Juju says when they vote 9-0, you know it's a good decision, LOL. I mean, maybe not, right? Like, I think it... However, yeah, look, it's most likely to be, at least based on the law, if all the Supreme Court justices agree on it. Anyway, if you guys want to talk about this for a minute, I'm going to open calls for a little, at least on this. We're not going to do this all night. We have other things to get to, but I'm going to set aside about 15 minutes now. If you have big, strong feels on the Supreme Court decision and you want to call in, now's the time. And you can call in and have your say. Again, not going to do this for long. I do want to get to 𝕾𝖍𝖎𝖙𝖘𝖍𝖔𝖜's Dune 2 take, and I want to get to the the Twitch's greatest anti-Semite award that they've been handing out when it comes to 𝕵𝖍𝖎. I want to talk about that. But we're gonna do this for a little bit. Let's bring on the next contestant on whatever this show is. Hi, you're live.
Hey.
Yo, what up? What are your thoughts? Supreme Court banging out the 9-0 ruling, okay? Banging it out. Based cringe? What's your read here?
Surface level, pretty logical. The whole thing about the other states finding arbitrary reasons to say this is insurrection without a trial and take somebody off the ballot, pretty logical. You don't want democracy breaking down, absolutely. I also like that they really established in stone that states can't police federal officials, and that's why there's no requirement for states to charge somebody with insurrection. But the federal government, if they wanted to go after somebody for insurrection, would actually have to charge. So Trump not being charged with that, it doesn't vindicate him. It just gives him the innocence that we are all presumed to have. So
fair enough. I told everyone, and I'll reiterate it. I haven't had time to go through the whole decision, right? And once again, not a lawyer, not a constitutional scholar, so my opinion is just going to be a layman's opinion, right? It sounds good or it sounds dumb. I don't know, right? But I think that you are correct when it comes to kind of the intuition of what will happen if this becomes precedent, right? Like if Colorado is allowed, sans a conviction, to keep someone from the ballot, what will Florida do, right? What will Texas do? What will other states do when it comes to this? And I think that even just from that perspective, it's probably a wise decision from SCOTUS to make this unanimous. And another thing I will say, I'm glad it's unanimous as well, especially on something this important. Because if it was like a 5-4 decision, then, man, I don't know. It would be a problem, right?
They left the door open for Congress to pass different laws or different regulations around this to bar Trump, for federal prosecutors to go after Trump for an insurrection still, and all these other there's still open routes for them to go. They're just saying the state is not allowed to police the federal government in that way. So if they want to go after him for insurrection, there's still a route to do so. I just don't see it as a feasible. It's a big First Amendment question, and like I've even heard like the most anti-Trump people say, like, once you get the First Amendment involved into it, it's like it's almost hard to nail him because he never actually commanded somebody to do violence. So
Well, I think it is going through the court, right? The whole insurrection thing. I am curious to see how that plays out. I don't know. Uh, I am with you though when it comes to the fact that this just shuts down this particular weaponization, for lack of a better term, of ballots. I think that again, and so this is where I get torn, okay? Because let's say he is convicted of insurrection. Let's say it goes through the system and he does get convicted. Even then, I'm not sure it would be wise to take him off the ballot, right? Because it would simply feed into conspiracy theories. Oh, he would have won unless, unless those damn Democrats didn't steal our election, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And two, I think it's important that we beat him fair and square, right? We beat him at the ballot box when voting times comes, November rolls around, and we just simply, again, like we did in 2020, just make it pretty clear he's not welcome. I think that would be better for democracy overall. But again, not a lawyer. I'm only going through from a layman's perspective here. So yeah.
which is noble of you to go that second, the latter route, but the former route you were talking about, he would actually have to be charged and found guilty of inciting the mob or insurrection. Because right now he's being charged with 3 counts of conspiracy and 1 count of obstruction. And it doesn't really have to do with him actually telling anybody to do anything, riling anybody up. It was more the John Eastman memos and things like that. And that's a whole different ballgame with Trump's arguing there that the immunity thing that they're going to review in a couple of weeks is like, he's arguing that, and this is kind of a good point to a degree, is there's a lot of untested, unproven things in the law, and the president should be able to stretch some of those things to the extent and trust that the pillars of democracy, which usually do, stand in the way if something wrong is about to happen. And I kind of agree with him on that
I
to a
don't
degree.
I don't know if I do on that particular thing. It's like if being in an airplane, okay, and then testing, like you're 10,000 feet in the air and then testing the integrity of the windows by banging on them with a hammer, right? Like, sure, it's good to test these things, but let's do it when it's a little more safe and we're on the ground, not in the middle of 10,000 feet up, right? Because if it does fail, we're fucked, okay?
You're arguing a layman, though, that's working on something that's already been tested by experts. These people are kind of at the cutting edge of these legal questions that we haven't had answered yet. So they're kind of treading in uncharted waters to a degree. And like, if you look at it, the way that Colorado Supreme Court interpreted the 14th Amendment, they essentially made their own reading of it. If I was a more disingenuous, like more right-leaning person, I would say that they intentionally misinterpreted the law to push a false legal theory in order to subvert the will of the voters and overturn the results of the upcoming election, and that they're insurrectionists. You could make that.
That would
It's
be
not
the
one to one.
talking point. That is the talking point according to my chat.
Yeah.
I think, look, you can't really argue with it that it's a fairly undemocratic thing that they tried to do. The argument would be, would it be legal and is it justified to do? Because I think democracy is great. I love democracy, but it's not the proper tool for every job. So, for example, our foreign policy should not be dictated, right, just willy-nilly on every particular by the individual voter, right, or by a voting bloc. So, because, for example, I think 9/11 is a great example of this. Had we given it over what to do to the American people, we wouldn't have a Middle East anymore. It would be glass right now, right? It would just be glass. I remember, again, I was, 19, 20, maybe? I forget exactly. I was old enough to remember, okay? to remember how things were back then. Even the left-wingers, right, were like, oh, no, we probably have to just go kill them all, right? Like, that was the feel. And, oh, my God, the right wing, they just wanted to nuke the whole place. Now, obviously, in retrospect, some real issues with that, right? But I think that's why democracy needs its guardrails, okay? We need things like the Supreme Court. We need things like the executive branch as well as the legislative branch. And we all have to work together to make the best decisions possible. But yeah, that's my thoughts. Any last words on this, my friend?
Yes. So, well, not on this, but tomorrow
Sure.
I will be on 𝕵𝖎𝖙 podcast. It starts as yours is ending. So even if you wanted to rate them out, maybe you could do that. But it's going to be 𝕬𝖏 and 𝕵𝖎𝖙 against me on immigration. So I'm not trying to hate on all these right-wing commentators out there, but they say things like 6 to 8 million illegal immigrants in the country and that Biden's not following the laws on the border. And then when they're pressed about these things, they can't name a single law. They can't tell you where these 6 million people, potentially the 8 million, have come from. I have all that shit in my notes. So if you actually want to kind of learn what the higher up Republicans are saying about this and not just your silly political talking heads you see on YouTube, come watch that debate tomorrow on 𝕵𝖎𝖙's channel.
Okay. Gang, check them out. We might rate into that. I like a good immigration debate. I've had a few on my channel, right? I think you've been on my channel for these immigration debates. So yeah, good luck, and I hope that you are able to get what you need done. We'll see you later, buddy. What a great caller. We'll have one more, and then we'll move on to the next topic. Artemis, you're live.
Well, hello there.
Hi. Dare I guess your thoughts on today's Supreme Court ruling? Dare I?
I mean, you should, go ahead and guess.
So, let's see. Let me use my cognitive reasoning abilities here. I'm going to say that you think it's based as fuck.
I think it is one of the more accurate ways of defining the outcome of this. I don't do the whole base thing. Here's my issue, right? You say you're not a lawyer, so there's no way you can comment on somebody's law acumen, right? Well, obviously, being a lawyer doesn't mean fucking anything if you're predicting the total opposite outcome and validity of your statements towards what it's going to be. So, I don't know if that other guy was a lawyer, but the 8-1 decision guy.
Oh, 𝕵𝖎𝖙 was not a lawyer.
Okay, that's good. But
𝕵𝖎𝖙, not a lawyer at all.
So here's my big thing, right? This court is not hard to understand. This court is basically applying common sense to most of its court rulings. Like when you say, hey, you can't just call somebody an insurrectionist. You actually have to have a trial to determine that they are actually guilty of the thing you're accusing them of being guilty of. You just predetermined that they were guilty, therefore. And that's why Colorado lost, and that's why everybody's getting blown the fuck out, is because they should have done the appropriate method, which was through the U.S. Code, like 12 U.S.
I don't know the exact code either.
2383. I can't remember. It's the Insurrection Act. It's a federal law based by Congress that says, hey, if you are found guilty of insurrection, you have a punishment of X.
Yeah, I think no, go on, please.
Okay. Well, the court has decided that, hey, states can't just willy-nilly determine on their own. They actually have to have Congress decide on how the method of ascertaining or determining you to be guilty of insurrection. And then, therefore, the method of 14th Amendment then applies, saying you cannot be on the ballot.
So, my thinking was this at the time, and I remember articulating this, maybe not on my stream, but I think I did it in Twitter or something. But basically, I think there might have been an argument to being able to look at the facts of a case that was pending and say, okay, based on the facts of the case that is pending, we're going to do certain actions, like keep you off the ballot. There might have been something there, right?
And that is guilty That
Yeah.
is that
Again,
is
I didn't know
pre-cog
the law
guiltiness.
though, right? Is the
Yeah.
thing, right? I don't know exactly how
So there
precedent
is
works
a
like that. And so I
yeah.
was just speaking like on, okay, well, it makes a logical sort of sense. Like, for example,
Mhm,
if I know someone is going through court, they haven't been
mhm.
found guilty yet, but they're going through court for
Well,
molesting kids.
well,
I wouldn't let them babysit my kid, even if they're
well,
found, like
we don't even
even
have to do
even
that. We have a precedent in court. It's called bail.
yeah,
If people suspect that you're going to go murder one of the witnesses, they don't let you out on bail.
sure,
They deny bail. So that is a predetermined, like a sort of predetermined of guilt based off of
yeah,
the risk assessment of what you would do if you got out, right?
sure.
Or if you would flee or whatever. So we already have something in law that it's not necessarily a form of law itself, but it's a mechanism we use to curtail risk, right?
No, I get you.
Yeah.
And so like I said, I think there might have been something there. Again, obviously not a lawyer, but when it went through the case, right, it was pretty
Hmm.
clear none of the Supreme Court justices saw it that way, which, fair enough. And as I said on the panel I had about this, right, like
Hmm.
if you remember watching it back in December, um, yeah, it just feels on an intuitive level wrong to remove someone from the ballot and not let
Right.
someone be voted on. It just
Like,
feels that way. And I
yeah.
think that I wish Jeb was available today. He's not. He has to work,
Mhm.
unfortunately. But I would love to have him on and just rag him for his prediction.
I, I like the fact that I put out like a few super chats towards Pisco when he was on this show about the U.S. Code 2383 for the Insurrection Act, and he's like, "No, that's bullshit. It's self executing. States can do whatever they want." I'm like, "Dude, no, you're going, you're wrong." And because on the face of it, right, there's a concept called due process. You can't just determine somebody's guilty without having a trial by their peers, or I mean, a jury of their peers, determine that they're guilty. And from there, then you can punish them if they're found guilty. But you have de facto decided that you're going to punish them because you have determined through the court, yeah, he's guilty, and that nobody questioned that. And that's why when it got out from under Democrat majority courts, it died. It's because they didn't have because they were political actors. That's why they knew that the thing that they were doing, and that's why the original court that had it, the lower court in Colorado, was like, yeah, he did insurrection, but we're not going to kick him off the ballot. Is because they knew that their ruling was a political in nature one, because they predetermined that he was guilty without
Sure.
having
I get you. I get what you're saying. I think that the political actor argument is a little weaker to me because I think that almost all courts can be viewed in that lens, right? Again, like I said earlier on the broadcast, I don't know if you were here for it, that I remember being alive in the 90s and 2000s.
Sure.
All the Republicans said, "Oh, they're just political actors. All the courts are just political actors, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera." Like, this seems to be a thing that people say when they don't like the decision being made. Oh, this is just politics. They're playing politics, and I don't. Again, it just falls kind of flat to me based on the
here I can easily distinguish between the 90s and what's currently going on. During the 90s, we had the religious argument for things, which on its face usually failed, right?
Yeah, rightly so.
Yeah, because we have a separation of church and state that's fundamentally within the American structure, no matter how much Christian fundamentalists want to change that. In the current day and era, left-leaning lawyers and judges and justices are not trying to uphold law. They're trying to contort it and twist it and abuse it into new understandings or new definings of what it is that they're trying to do, and then shove their political aspirations through that hole that they're making. And you could see it in the results of these cases.
Well, in that case, why didn't the liberal judges on the Supreme Court decide with the political decisions
that is
Colorado?
A great question, because if they had decided, and this is what Justice Jackson pointed out is the patchwork issue. That if you're just going to allow the states just to predetermine that somebody's guilty of insurrection without a fundamental baseline of how to do so, without a jury or anything, well, there's a lot of cases where all the states that matter in the, let's just say, swing states, could just predetermine that Biden is guilty and remove him from the ballot, and therefore, de facto, because there's more Republican states than there are, lean Republican. You have purple states, but they predominantly in the legislatures lean Republican. Would just de facto give the Republican Party a win after win every year, and for the foreseeable future, because you just ruled against yourself. So they're trying to save themselves, which is why it's a pragmatic argument that they were making for the patchwork issue. And you don't want to open that genie because you could never put it back in the bottle.
I think you're right in that. I think my frustration with you, Artemis, is that you can you understand the pragmatic things at play, but you still ascribe like the ruling itself by the Supreme Court liberals or the leftists on the Supreme Court as to, well, they would, if they could, be political actors here, but they just saw this as a pragmatic thing. I don't know if that's fair to them. I think it's they're professionals. I think they ruled in a professional manner. They saw the law, they read the law as it was, and the law was pretty clear. And so, I mean, what else are you going to say, right? Like, this is the law.
I could say that Justice Jackson has, in many of her court decisions on her voting, never relied on the U.S. Constitution for many of them.
I'm going to be real. I haven't read a lot of Supreme Court decisions.
You haven't. I have. If you want to see Justice Thomas, berating her in the fucking decision, like in his comments about her decision on a lot of the court cases, it's fucking hilarious. Where he's like, well, one, she didn't use anything. She didn't ascribe to anything. She didn't use anything as a reference. She didn't cite any court cases. She didn't do anything other than pontificate upon the court why something is immoral or whatever. And it is one of the funniest things to watch. Or read, I'm sorry.
Link me and I'll have to check it out if I'm ever super bored. Artemis, thanks for calling in. I appreciate it. Any other thoughts on this before we
we haven't even gotten to the best part here.
Oh, what's the best part? Give us the best part.
So the issue with this case is that it's just going to compound on the other cases where, for some reason, the Democrats are incapable of successfully prosecuting what they complain to be an idiot, a buffoon of a president, because every one of the people they bring up to, like, as a prosecutor or a DA, seems to have some fundamental corrupt, like, thing going on with them that collapses the case entirely.
That isn't an argument against the case, though.
Yeah, it is.
How?
Because if you're only capable of, the only people you have put up to prosecute a case are deeply corrupt individuals, you have a problem.
Do you think that they're doing that on purpose, right? That
Yes.
Why? Why would they do that? Why?
Because
Hold
they
on.
don't have anybody
Why would they shoot themselves in the foot like that?
Because they don't have anybody else.
Why
Did they push Joe Biden for running for president in 2020? Because they didn't have anybody else.
But they had
that's why.
Plenty of people. Buttigieg, Amy
gonna win?
Klobuchar.
Who was going to win?
Bernie was going to win.
No, he was going to win in 2016, and that man decided to bend the knee.
But until Super Tuesday, Bernie was...
No. We know from John Podesta emails that they had contracts behind the scenes where Hillary controlled the entire DNC.
No, I'm talking about 2020, man.
Oh, well, that was a different story. That he after 2016, we all knew that he would just give up whenever he showed adversity.
I don't know if that's giving up exactly. Like, wouldn't you like it if Nikki Haley bent the knee?
No.
No?
No, because she's a clear example of the Democratic Party trying to get involved in the Republican primaries, because the only place that she could actually win was DC. In any closed primary, she got waffle stomped.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
Yeah, because you tried to claim that hey, maybe it's
I think
Republican
that.
Party was like
Well, I think
in
Trump needs to
favor.
be. I think you guys are coping right now about this. I think that Nikki Haley's, yes, she's getting destroyed, but she's still pulling up 30-40% of the vote.
Yeah, where from who?
That's
Is
the
it from
question.
Republican? Is it Republican voters or is it Democratic voters
That's the
coming in?
question.
Well,
And
we
I
know
think it
who it
should
is.
keep you know it is. Well, I hope
Yes.
you keep that confidence because I don't think that's going to pan out
Hold
for
on.
you guys in November.
Where
I think come
I am gonna
November you're going to
parse it.
find out that there's a lot of moderate Republicans who just
Okay.
cannot stand
Question.
Trump.
So when this inevitability comes and I get to be on your show, and I get to sit here while you admit you're totally well, sorry, you can't actually say this right now, but I'm gonna say I want to be on a show after election night, so that I can bask in the
You can
obvious inevitability.
Absolutely. I hope that you will. I pray, sir, that you will attend it because I will have a show right at probably on election night, right? Like,
Well, I
and
also have
probably
my own
after.
shows with like Dev and other people.
Sure.
Because I am very entertaining when I'm on stream, so I have to split my time.
I get it. No, I get it. This is joint custody here. But I hope
Yeah.
you'll carve out a little time for me so that I can listen to
it
your
might be
excuses of why you were misreading the tea leaves when the time
So here's
comes.
the issue, right? When Trump does win and the catastrophic damage that the Democrats do by burning shit to the ground, we can have that amazing discussion then how the Democratic Party is sore losers.
Well, look, I'm not gonna argue with it on that Democrats are generally sore losers. Absolutely, right?
Because all Republicans do is pass fucking legislation to win the next time.
But
That's how they
Republicans
get back.
are not much better. In fact, I would consider them worse in a lot of ways. They are very sore losers. At least recently, right? I think that
you got more
everyone's a
people
sore
backstage
loser.
now. You have people do.
I know.
Now, come on.
I know. And
Right. You got anything else for me?
no, nothing for you. But
All right.
again, I'll remind you, right, to come on after the election day. Okay.
You don't have to remind me. I remember everything.
Okay. I'll see you later, buddy.
See ya.
Okay. Again, we're only. I want to get through these callers quick because I want to get to the next segment, right? I want to get to the next segment. But yeah, we'll bring you on, see what you have to say. Hey, you're live.
Hello.
Oh, and hold on, Artemis. If you have a streaming link or whatever to give people, the people on Twitch are asking for it. I don't know your channel. I don't know if you have a channel, but please, if you have one, please put it in my Twitch chat. Anyway, continue. Hi.
Hi. So we're talking the Supreme Court saying that Colorado can't take Trump off the ballot.
Yep. What are your thoughts?
Trump shouldn't be on the ballot because he staged an insurrection. I don't think revolutionaries should be in the government.
Do you think then that the SCOTUS ruling was erroneous, was false, was wrong?
Yeah, I think it was false.
For what? Just because you don't like the fact that
I don't think revolutionaries should be able to run for government.
Okay.
That goes for both the far left and the far right.
But legally speaking, that's just not the case, right? Like legally speaking, you can be a revolutionary and you can run for office. There is no bar, at least there's no bar that I'm aware of that keeps someone who has revolutionary tendencies towards running for office. What the SCOTUS ruling was on Colorado's decision based on I believe it was Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, which Colorado claimed barred Trump from being in office. SCOTUS disagreed. So that was as I understand it, the basis of the ruling. Now, if you would like to change the law so that people who call for revolution or what have you aren't allowed on the ballot, I can hear you out. But I think that at least what SCOTUS ruled on was just clearly the law of the land, right? Like that's as it exists right now, that's just the law. So
yeah. Also, Artemis was on. Yeah, I've seen many of Artemis's conversations with old Devo.
Yeah, Artemis gets around. He's a good guy. He's super wrong on certain things, but he's a good guy.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thanks for calling. Thanks for calling in. Thanks for giving your opinion.
Yep.
I'll see you later, buddy.
Bye.
Yeah, like, look, I'm with him in spirit. I think that these LARPers who walk around talking about destroying all our systems and institutions are dumb, retarded even. But no, I don't think they should be forbidden from running from office. If they want to run, if they can win, more power to them, right? Luckily, most revolutionists can't even break 1% when it comes to getting elected. But this was next caller on whatever this is. Hello, you're live.
1 second, let me mute the stream. All right, there we go. So, I am mixed on the SCOTUS ruling for 2 reasons. One, Trump's attorneys did horrible at defending him. At how do I put it? This current ruling that SCOTUS put out, and that really lowers the bar for people who go forward to SCOTUS, thinking, "Oh, I can just argue like what Trump's attorneys did." Second, I agree with the previous caller that insurrectionists should not be able to run for office. But I understand why the Supreme Court ruled the way they did.
What would you say the reason for ruling the way they did is?
Well, Artemis, I think it was Artemis that put it like this, that how do I put it? And correct me if it's not Artemis that said it. Just correct me. If SCOTUS rules that Trump is off the ballot, okay, for whatever he did, conservatives, state houses could just say, "Hey, Biden's now off the ballot." So yeah.
Well, yes, Artemis did say that. He compared
Okay.
it to a genie in the bottle. He's not the only one that said that.
Yeah.
I said that at the time. Other people said that
fair
as well. But I will say, right, that that's just correct, right? That's just something that would happen. When it comes to insurrectionists, I agree. If who's convicted of insurrection, even then, I don't know, right? Like, I'm torn, like I said, towards average debate enjoyer when he was on.
Yeah.
I'm torn on that. However, I could see a much stronger argument for removing him from the ballot, but he's not, and that's the fact, right? He's not convicted right now of being an insurrectionist. And much like people will say that Biden is guilty of fraud and nepotism and etc., I don't want them just to be able to willy-nilly take him off the ballot just because of accusations. I think it's fine to wait for a conviction.
I'm fine with that as well. So.
Okay. Then the SCOTUS ruling is based in that case.
However, there's one, and this goes back to the original point I brought up.
Please.
Like, and this is going to happen in the next SCOTUS. This is going to happen in the next level of arguments for the next case that goes to the Supreme Court with Trump. They're doing a shit job, and forget. And also, am I allowed to swear? I already sweared, so
You can swear, just no toss.
okay.
Stuff. Okay. No.
Okay. So
no gamer words.
got it. They're doing a shit job at arguing on Trump's behalf. Okay, it's mainly because Trump hires these attorneys that don't really practice law. They're Fox News attorneys. They're there to get the headlines. Well, practice law actively.
I mean,
So,
I didn't see the arguments. I didn't. So I can't comment
Yeah.
on their veracity or how well they argued. But at the end of the day, they won their case. Now, was that despite
totally.
their argument or because of it? I don't know. But it's one of those things where, like, I guess I believe, and maybe this is naivete on my part. It very well might be. But I believe that regardless of the strength or lack thereof of an argument, that if the law clearly states one thing, that arguments be damned, this court will rule in on it based on the merits of the case presented. Now, again, I think you would have a stronger case if it was a closer decision, but it was a 9-0 ruling. It was unanimous. I mean,
Oh, absolutely.
so I don't know.
I
Anyway,
don't know.
any final thoughts
law of the
before
land.
we let you go?
SCOTUS made a ruling that's the law of the land now. So, well, kind of, but yeah.
Kind of. I mean, we've had SCOTUS rulings
It
overturned
is.
before, but for now, buddy,
Yeah.
we'll see you later.
For now, yeah.
Bye-bye. Gang, are we done with the SCOTUS stuff? Can we move on? Can we go to the next one? Can we go to the Dune 2? Do we want to talk about Dune 2? Do you guys want to... I saw it over the weekend. Raise your hands in chat, I guess, if you've seen Dune 2 yet. I won't get into spoilers that much. I'll go a little bit. But I'll... Have you read the books? Okay. If you read the books, you know what'll happen. Okay. Zephyr's seen it. Techie and Blue hasn't seen it yet. Alex Kirsch saw it on Friday. Juju saw it. Bill Bradley's got to run. Hey, thanks for coming by while you could, right? Really appreciate all my viewers, right? As much time as you got, is I'll take it. CNN is about to fire Jake Tapper and Anderson Cooper. Why? Why are they going to fire them? Did you IMAX it up? I didn't go see it in IMAX. I wish I had, but we don't have an IMAX near here. Like, if I wanted to go to an IMAX theater, it'd be like an hour drive. A little too much. Too much driving for my blood, especially with the movie being as long as it was. So I just saw it in the local theaters. Okay, before we get into the bad takes on Dune 2, let me just give you my opinion here. Extra, Wick, proud of you for getting a new mic. Sorry for all the times I called you out on it. LOL. It's okay. I'm glad I got a new mic too. Thanks to Tenflix for donating to me, by the way. Shout out to Tenflix. Good guy. He gave it to me. So appreciate him. I thought Dune 2 was excellent. I give it a strong 8 out of 10. A strong 8 out of 10. Okay. Very, very well done. The visuals were stunning. The acting was on point. It was a bit of a slow burn at first, but I think the payoff was strong in the end. There were a few scenes which were just like, right? So there's this trope that happens all the time. And it's not unique to Dune 2, but this is one of the... It's a pet peeve of mine, okay? It's a pet peeve, okay? And whenever your top general or bodyguard or whoever says, hey, we should probably leave now. It's too dangerous to stay here. And then the ruler is like, nah, I'm going to ignore you. You get what you get at that point. You deserve what you get, okay? Look, if your top dudes are all saying, hey, let's skedaddle. This isn't safe here. Listen to them. Get out. Do what they advise you to do. Stop being a dumbass. Okay? It's so stupid. So frustrating. The other criticism I have of the Dune series is not just this movie, but it's the movies. I get you want your villains to be villains and you want to portray them as bad guys, but they were cartoonish villains, okay? The Harkonnen, this is the book's fault too, to be clear. It's not just the director's fault. It's not just the movie's fault. This was a bad thing in the book as well. That they're all little mustache twirling, I'm as evil as possibly can be. And they're portrayed to just be like cartoonishly evil, over the top, right? On any chance to be evil, they take that chance, okay? The one exception to that was one of the younger Harkonnens. I forget his name off the top of my head. I I think that there was a possibility in there for them to flesh him out more, to be less just cartoonish evil, to have some redeeming qualities. But I say this knowing that he was just a psychopath, right? In a lot of ways, right? The movie portrayed him as just a psychopath. However, there were hints of him being an honorable man in there on occasion, of him having some potentially redeeming qualities in the future, had he had more time, had the story had more time to flesh him out. Perhaps we could have gotten to that. We did not, however, in the movie. And so that's another criticism I have of the series as a whole. I think it was too cartoonish in nature. Okay. 𝕾𝖍𝖎𝖙 says it's always nice to hear the average American's musings on sci-fi artistic movies. I guess, right? I read the original Dune. I didn't read the follow-ups. I've seen and read sci-fi all my life. I think I'm a pretty good judge of good sci-fi and bad sci-fi, but that's me. Like I said, it was a strong 8 out of 10 movie. There are criticisms I have for it, however. And that is one of them. The Alex Kirsch Project says, WhickTV, as someone who is deep into lore, I can explain what Feyd's purpose in the book and how they changed that in the movie. Again, it's been a while since I've read the book, so I can only go based off the movie as it was presented to me. And that is my thoughts. So yeah, that's my thoughts. Same criticisms from Game of Thrones villains. Some of them yes, some of them no. I think that who was that guy? What was his name? The guy who would hunt down people with dogs, right? They would release them and he'd let their dogs. I think he was Sasha Stark's main antagonist. Do you remember that, gang? What was his name? I forget his name off the top of my head. But that guy was cartoonish and over the top, and I thought, I didn't like him as a movie. Pottering Politics says, did you know that the actor who plays Feyd just started a Metallica cover band? It's called Fade to Black. Okay, Pondering. Okay. Pondering, get in here and tell us about your thoughts on the Supreme Court ruling. I know we finished that segment, but I'll make an exception for you. I'm curious what your thoughts are on because you were on my panel about it. And now that the decision is dropped, are you surprised? Are you shocked? What are your thoughts on here? Feel free to jump back and I can pull you on anytime. But Ramsey Bolton, thank you, Alex Kirsch. Ramsey Bolton, yeah, I think that guy was too much. That said, I've always been critical of how lazy writers are when it comes to portraying evil. I'm not saying that you can never do these things. I think that sometimes they can be effective in establishing a character and establishing, the style of story you want. However, I think that they are something that authors and directors lean on far too much. They overuse it, and it's just done to death. And to Dune 2's credit, the movie, again, not the book. The book had this problem. The movie did not. They used rape and doing bad shit to children, okay? Those are the two tropes that I think are very overused when it comes to making someone a villain or showing how evil your evil guy is, right? They'll usually rape someone, or they'll usually do something terrible to kids, okay? You can see this in a lot of movies, okay? A lot of books, they'll fall onto this trope. There are a million ways to portray evil. True evil, like gut-churning evil, without doing those things. I think they're lazy. I think it's a shortcut, and I think that people should stop doing it. $5 from Lesson Cell. Do you really think Ramsey was cartoonish? Many people portrayed him as a clear sadist that took pleasure out of others' pain. Yeah, I mean, that's why I thought he was kind of cartoonish. I think it was like really over the top in my opinion. But that's, again, just my opinion. Let's bring on Pondering. Rabid Wombat, I see it. We'll get to you. Don't worry. Yo, what up, G?
Yo, can you hear me?
I can. So SCOTUS dropped the Supreme Court ruling on of course SCOTUS dropped the Supreme Court ruling. SCOTUS dropped the ruling on the Colorado Colorado Supreme Court ruling on Trump, where they removed him from the ballot. It was a 9-0 decision, and it was pretty clearly against Colorado's ruling there. What are your thoughts? What do you have to say for yourself, sir?
Can't say I'm surprised. I think everybody expected that. I think even before oral arguments took place, I think everybody expected that the conservative majority would save Trump with respect to ballot access. And then after oral arguments, I think everyone warmed up to the increasingly probable possibility that this would be a blowout decision that even the liberal justices would join. What's interesting is if you read the opinion, it's about 20 pages long. When it comes to the narrow question of should Donald Trump be kept off the ballot by Colorado, that's the 9-0 decision, okay? Where they're like, hey, we don't think that a state should be able to enact this patchwork-style approach and kick presidential candidates off the ballot. So that's the narrow fact or the narrow question that was unanimously decided. I have not heard. I've done a bit of reading on this with from Lawrence Tribe and Judge 𝕾𝖍𝖎𝖙, conservative federal judge who's been one of the cheerleaders of the 14th Amendment case against Trump. I think Destiny just had a conversation with a conservative attorney in Pisco about this. I wasn't able to hear the whole thing. My gut check is, I still find the argument persuasive, but if you look at it, their beef is mostly with the practical implications of a patchwork style system. Like if you just give states carte blanche to pull people off ballots, then it's going to create an untenable political situation, which, as we discussed, may very well be the case, right? Certainly, because
if you remember when we had the panel on it, right? That was my main contention with Colorado's ruling is I worried about the precedent would set. I'd worried about it would be like a Pandora's box, and opening it would be a very bad for democracy overall. I will say though that when you say that everyone thought this was the case, do you remember 𝕵𝖎𝖙 prediction on my panel?
I don't.
He thought it was going to be 8-1. Yeah, he was a conservative arguing with you guys, or for you guys, I guess, on your side. He thought it would be 8-1 the other way, and I hope that he's around at some point so I can have him on.
You should, but what he'll tell you is, and I seem to recall, I don't remember the specific prediction, but I seem to recall the reason that he thought that it would go the opposite direction. I don't remember the 8-1 thing, but I'll take that at face value. He was like, listen, if these conservatives are worth their salt, they'll read this from a strict textualist angle, because conservative judges say all the time, hey, fuck the politics, fuck the practical. They do this with the Second Amendment all the time, which, Destiny and Pisco made that case when they discussed this earlier in the snippet that I heard. They're like, listen, if you want to consider the real practical results of a piece of legislation, then that we should actually constrict the Second Amendment, right? Given all the fucking people who die in this country from gun violence all the time. And at the time that the Second Amendment was written, we didn't have, nuclear warheads and mortars and shit like that. So, but you all don't care about that. That's just, it's what's on the ink on page, baby. That's all we care about. Well, now you care about the practical implications, and largely, it happens to fall on your political ideology. So 𝕵𝖎𝖙's position was, if they're true textualists, they won't give a flying fuck about the potential political implications, and if it dooms the country, then so be it, because this is what it says on paper. And so I think if you talk to him again, I can't speak for him, but he'll probably defend that. He'll say, I was wrong on the prediction, but the logic was there. But what's interesting too, Wick, is you actually read the opinion. There is a section from Justice Amy Coney Barrett, who is the final conservative justice from Trump's appointment, was the last one You may recall when Republicans played dirty pool. We're not gonna appoint a Supreme Court justice in an election year, and then they did it during an election year, 3 weeks before the election, because of course Republicans are morally inferior hypocrites, and the Democratic Party is objectively superior in all ways. Had to throw that in there. Amy Coney Barrett actually made a brazen political statement. I think if you actually read, she's like, "Listen, the 9-0 part, I'm with everybody else there. I would actually be content," she says, "to just decide it there, and the majority goes further than what I'd like, because they actually take the opinion that not only should Trump be not kicked off the ballot, but states cannot kick any federal officer off the ballot at all. It takes a specific act of Congress to do it." She's like, "I wouldn't have gone that far." Then she says, I hope that, because there are 3 liberal justices who actually give a kind of a quasi
A
dissent.
moment,
Go
please.
ahead.
Brittany Simon, thank you for the raid. Welcome, gang. I don't know if you guys know this, but Brittany Simon's coming on my show on Wednesday. That'll be exciting. But no, thank you for the raid. Settle down. We're talking Supreme Court briefly, but then we're going to go back to Dune 2 in 1 second. But go ahead. Thank you for the raid. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. I'm kidding. No. So they give a quasi dissent, and they say that, again, we would agree with the situation about Trump, but we think you go way too far and you unnecessarily overreach. What's interesting about what Amy Coney Barrett says is we just kind of need to pull together, because this is a really fraught political time. She actually uses the phrase that we answered a highly controversial political question during a politically divisive election. And what I found fascinating about that is that was just an explicit admission that the Supreme Court is making political considerations, right or wrong, in its calculus. For her to add that, hey, basically I agree with this, I probably disagree with this part here, but I'm not going to say anything, and we all need to come together, and the American people need to understand that this isn't the time for us to voice our disagreements. You should check it out.
We had Artemis on earlier, who was basically making the exact opposite argument, that it was the liberals on the quote-unquote the liberals on the court who were doing the political thing of being pragmatic, and it was the conservatives who were standing by their principles and ruling on the law. So it's just interesting to me to hear wildly opposite perspectives on this, even though it's both a 9-0, right?
I was hoping that Artemis would get that obvious drinking problem he has under control. I mean, obviously, Artemis, if you're listening, you asshole, listen, man, don't flee into the bottle. We're here for you. You have a support system. No, I mean, of course he would say that. I do disagree. You should definitely... Honestly, it may be worth revisiting for a post-mortem panel, especially between 𝕝𝖎𝖙 and 𝕝𝖐𝑠co and 𝕾𝖍𝖎.
I would love to have them both on again and have well, this was our December thoughts when it first came out. Now that the decision is made, do we stand by the arguments we made? What do we think happened? I think that'd be a great thing. I'll get with you in private about that, right? And,
because 𝕝𝖐𝑠co and 𝕾𝖍𝖎 have already sparred a bit on.
I saw
on Twitter. Hey, real quick, I don't know who 𝕾𝖍𝖎 is, but this time I have chat up, because the last time dude was talking all kinds of smack and I wasn't able to see it. He says cry about it. I don't know how much time you have, but he is welcome to make me cry if he wants to pop in and do so.
𝕾𝖍𝖎's always welcome on my program. I don't know if he will. He's a chatter. He doesn't really come on, but he's welcome to come on.
What's the wrench near his name? What's that mean?
Oh, it means he's a moderator in my chat.
Oh, that guy.
He says, "Buy me a microphone." Buy him a microphone.
Oh, I don't know if I or anyone else are interested enough in your opinion, 𝕾𝖍𝖎, to purchase a microphone.
Look, 𝕾𝖍𝖎 is great for my community. Okay, I love 𝕾𝖍𝖎. I will not stand for 𝕾𝖍𝖎 slander. However, you can call him a dumbass. That's fine. I do sometimes too. So.
Every sin, I think I did the last time when his comments were brought to my attention. 𝕾𝖍𝖎, and keep it to yourself. Sweetheart, you're the one talking all kinds of smack here when we know you have a microphone. We also know that you have headphones with a microphone. You can just plug them into your phone, jump in chat. You have a Discord app. But otherwise, just cowardly keep typing, keyboard warrior. And by the way, Wick, speaking of microphone, I saw that you have a new one. Congratulations.
It's great. I don't know if it changes the sound on Discord, but apparently on YouTube and on Twitch, people are much happier now about it. So,
yeah, well, then why the headset still?
This has never worked and I like to have headphones, right? Because otherwise I'll get if I play the audio from non-headphones, it'll be picked up. We'll get
Gotcha.
echoes.
Well, the audio quality is considerably improved. I saw that
Thank you.
on one of your recent panels. It's very, very good.
Thank you.
But yeah.
While I have you here, and I'll bring on Rabbit because poor Rabbit. Okay, you want me to bring on Artemis? We'll see what Artemis has to say.
Artemis!
Poor Rabbit. You know what? I'll bring on Rabbit too in case he has thoughts on this. Because I feel bad keeping Rabbit back there, but I know he wanted to talk about Dune, but I'm sure Artemis wants to talk about SCOTUS. So you're both live.
Well,
Welcome.
I'm just glad, Artemis, that you staggered your way to your seat, buddy. I mean, tripping all over those empty beer bottles. How dare you? How dare you say such things about the liberal dissenters?
Yeah. Also, I can't believe you just called Rabbit a horrible word like that.
What did I call him?
No, never mind. So I got a question. So you obviously still find the Colorado decision persuasive to a certain extent.
Sure.
And the only reason it's not as 100% solid is because of the practical implications of the quote unquote genie out of the bottle.
Hang on, I got to stop you right there. Hang on 1 second. I'd rather not talk to a pack mouthpiece by 𝕾𝖍𝖎𝖙. Okay, that's the real reason. So you do have the means to talk to me. You just don't want to. That's fine.
Okay,
but
we can argue with chat later.
That you're a pussy. I just want that on the record.
We can argue with chat later. We can argue with chat later.
Sex at another time with 𝕾𝖍𝖎. You guys are obviously
the sexual. No, listen. The sexual tension is mostly between Artemis and I. I'm sorry, Artemis. Go ahead.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. You're my one and only, baby. You're number one. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
So it's only the genie out of the bottle thing that makes it less persuasive because we all know that if Colorado got to do what it wanted, we know that the Republican states would have abused the hell out of that ruling, right?
100. Well,
we know that they would.
They said they would, and I think that's a distinct possibility. I don't know if as many of them would follow through with it as possible. Yeah. But yes, that's of course a risk.
Yeah, and I would say that it's not persuasive because of the whole due process clause and that the fact that we have criminal statutes for insurrection already on the books that would not followed.
I'm sorry. Could you repeat that part?
There's so we know about the due process clause, right? You can't just label somebody a murderer without actually and then penalizing them for being one without actually finding them guilty in a court of law, right?
Well, but with respect, this is the problem because you're going to appeal to the criminal statute, but there wasn't a criminal statute against insurrection at the time that the 14th Amendment was drafted.
Sure,
so
and
if the 14th, but my point is, if the 14th Amendment required a criminal conviction, then that wouldn't make any sense. It would have never been ratified because there was never a criminal code against insurrection at the time it was ratified. So clearly, the 14th Amendment never required it.
Yeah, and that's just because of the whole concept of, well, we really realistically know who was part of the Confederate Army. It wasn't a hidden fact, and they didn't really have to do guesswork on it because it was so preeminently within the course of time that they were worried about it during the Reconstruction era. And that doesn't take away from the fact that they more formalized the process later on with the Insurrection Act, or in the criminal statute that governs it, is a more crystallization and formal way of prosecuting it.
But I don't think it has any sort of retroactive effect on the 14th Amendment. So at the time the 14th Amendment was codified, was ratified, it didn't specifically mention the Civil War. It just said insurrection is insurrection period, right? And so if the idea was, because I take your point, okay, maybe the Civil War was relatively more straightforward, right? Because in most cases these people had uniforms, et cetera, and so forth. I would certainly agree that it's less ambiguous when you're referring to insurrectionists who served in the Confederacy. Yeah. But you'd have a point if the language of the 14th Amendment was only about the Civil War. It wasn't. So clearly they were thinking insurrection in general. And if the notion of insurrection in general, in order to disqualify somebody, requires a criminal conviction, then they would have also passed a federal, law against insurrection, right? But they didn't do that until well after the ratification of the 14th Amendment. So I don't think it applies.
Well, the issue being is that most of the 14th Amendment applied to state appointments. And like even the state senators and congressmen were elected or designated by the states themselves. These, like the senators being a amendment that was later on voted by the people, and the president themselves was never a part of that. The president and vice president positions were never part of the 14th Amendment to begin with. So if we're going to read a strict amendment reading, it would fail again because the president and vice president would be taken off of the final version of that amendment.
But the final version of that amendment, the framers, we have the concurrent debates at the time, and they were asked about the president and the vice president, and one of the drafters of the 14th Amendment says they're covered under all executive officers. So I reject that argument as well.
I think that's the person who wrote it specifically took them off of it, and for the
they were but because it was broader.
We can't just take one person's argument and deny the other people who wrote it in.
Well, no,
they had different versions of it.
Well, no, but you would go with the final iteration of it. So the fact that the vice president or the president and the vice president were specifically enumerated in previous iterations of the amendment, but then removed would mean a lot if the framers of the final amendment didn't also say, well, they're covered under all executive officers. We just didn't feel the need to specifically enumerate them because the people who were enumerated, like senator and representative and elector of president and vice president, those aren't offices. Those what's the term that they're
official
appointees?
Shit, no. Fuck. There's a legal term for them.
I doubt shit or fuck is a legal term. It could be.
Yeah, but goddamn, I'll have to come back to you on that. But there's like a specific term the Constitution uses for senator, representative, elector of president and vice president.
They're not specifically officers. They don't hold an office. I think the only person who does is the.
Yeah, but do you remember the fucking name?
No. I'm not.
Okay,
I
sorry.
know. Yeah. No. But my biggest thing is that there's actually multiple people who wrote the final version of it and had their own ideas of why they took it off. Now they could all have come to agreement to remove it, but just like in this 9-0 decision, they had their own reasoning for why they made that choice. We can't just take one person's idea of why they removed it.
But the court in this decision doesn't weigh in as to into any of the things that we're talking about. As fascinating as they are to talk about, they don't opine. As a matter of fact, what's hilarious is they don't even say that Trump is not an insurrectionist. They could have said that. They could have said, not only do we say that Colorado can't kick him off the ballot, but January 6th is not an insurrection. Trump is not an insurrectionist for having contributed to it.
And good for them.
They're completely silent on all that shit. They just say that he can't be kicked off.
For one thing, the way in which Colorado went about doing their thing was not. I don't even think a reasonable person would say is how the judicial process should work, anyways, to determine whether or not somebody committed an insurrection or not.
It was after a 5-day bench trial, and
with no jury.
No jury. But the jury thing would matter to me if there was a criminal penalty associated with it. Like, I would agree, as somebody who thinks that Donald Trump is a fascist insurrectionist, I would also be uncomfortable if a judge was like, he's a fucking insurrectionist, throw his ass in jail without the benefit of a jury. But hang on. So courts find issues of fact all the time, and they came to their determination after all those things. So he was entitled to that was due process. He got his due process.
No. I think everybody can understand that. You gonna cut in here?
No, it's. I wanted to see if Rabbit had anything to share.
Oh yeah, sorry.
And I do want to get to Dune at some point, gang.
I do. I have a question for Josiah, though.
Sir.
Yeah, go for it.
So, if you don't think it requires, let's say this stood, and according to you don't need
say what this
a
is?
criminal. Let's say the Supreme Court's decision went the other way, and your position is that you don't need a charge because those charges didn't exist when the 14th Amendment was originally drafted. There's also a portion in there about giving aid or comfort to the enemies thereof. So let's say you're one of the squad and you donate, you do a GoFundMe, and some of the money winds up in the hands of either a terrorist group or someone that you can make a reasonable case is considered a, quote, enemy, unquote, of the United States. Should they be removed from office?
If you can make a reasonable case that a sitting member of Congress, regardless if they're Democrat or Republican, has given aid and comfort to an insurrectionist, yes, I would support that.
No, enemy.
Well, it doesn't say
enemy of the United States.
Like Putin or Hamas.
Or like some type of people that help support Yemeni or Somali.
Isn't the
interests.
language? Well, hang on. I don't think it says anything about enemy of the state. Hang on one
It's
second.
literally
Any,
enemies. Well,
any
enemies
comfort to the
thereof.
enemy, yeah.
Well,
It's
hang
a
on, wait.
an
Let me just
ambiguous
go back
enemy.
He
here.
can bring it up. He's
Yeah,
a good
yeah.
boy.
Yeah, to support. So it says to support the Constitution shall have engaged in insurrection or rebellion against the Constitution, or give aid and comfort to the enemies of the Constitution. Okay, so fair
Yeah.
enough.
So
If
it's a
they,
yeah, wholly
if you can make
ambiguous
a
enemy.
if you can make a reasonable case that a member of Congress gave aid and comfort to an enemy of the Constitution, then go ahead and litigate the matter just like they did with Trump. And if a court finds that, the member of the squad violated Section 3 of the 14th Amendment because they gave aid and comfort to an enemy of the Constitution, so be it. I don't care. Because here's my thing. The alternative is what? The idea that, see, we can use the law against you. Okay, well, if that is going to prevent there's not a single law in the history of law which can't be abused by the opposition or used in good faith by the opposition. So if that will never be a thing to deter me, because if that's the case, then we just wouldn't do anything.
So my question would be is why do you think a 5-day bench trial where it had no jury, I don't know if that's like the fact if it's a bench trial, it has no jury, is a actual form of due process?
Because
when there's no discovery involved. Because they had limited discovery and nothing past that point.
Well, again, that is discovery. It's not perhaps the level of discovery you'd appreciate. But again, there was no penalty associated. There's no like deprivation of rights associated with the judge's opinion. So
here's my question for you then. Let's just say your name comes up in a trial that you will not be penalized or criminally otherwise for, but they label you a child predator in the process. And you have you're not criminally held liable for it, but they find that you're a child predator in a court of law somehow. Without a jury, and you can't defend yourself because now it's a statement of fact, and the court has found
Trump did defend himself. So wait a minute, whoa! I reject the premise. Wait a minute, I reject the premise. Trump did defend himself in a 5-day bench trial with his own witnesses, and then he availed himself of the appellate process.
Okay, I'm throwing a flag on the play, right? Because I want to talk about Dune.
I haven't watched it,
too.
so I can't give a comment.
All I say is
I do want, however, stop beforehand.
Sorry.
Stop beforehand. I do want to talk about this. I would love to have like a reimagine, the remix, the reboot of of this. And if you're available Friday, maybe, right? Like we do it Friday.
So Fridays are tough. I try to dedicate Fridays, Saturdays to my social life, but especially now that I'm doing this full time. But we can set something up.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. Yeah.
Rabbit, before I go, were you expecting a different answer of me with your squad example? Because I think it's a fair question to ask.
Well, I think then it would become, does donating $100 to a GoFundMe qualify, right?
And that would have to be a question for the courts. But I see no issue with you attempting to make the case. Can I just say this is a sidebar? This is kind of the same thing with. Are you familiar with Trump's claims of presidential immunity, which is this another upcoming? Okay, may I ask what your stance is on that before you all get to Dune?
I mean, I would want to think on it a little bit more. I don't have fully formed thoughts on it. I generally am against it, but I wouldn't be able to articulate it very well to you right now.
That's fair. So one of the things I hear as somebody who thinks, of course, presidents are not entitled and should not be entitled to absolute criminal immunity, especially after they leave office. That's insane. That would effectively make someone not only above federal law, but the Constitution, which runs contrary to what the founders wanted and just common sense. The common response from conservatives is, well, if Trump doesn't get immunity, then we're coming after Obama and we're going to come after Biden. And my response is,
sure,
who cares? Yeah. That's
all. I think it's actually, I don't know where the left is getting the absolute immunity argument from. This is why I think it's going to fail in the Supreme Court, and they're going to be really surprised with the decision that comes out, because they're not asking for 100% immunity. They're saying that you have to be
impeached and convicted first.
Yeah, yes. And then you can, even if you're out of office, you can still be impeached and convicted in the Senate. Says the fucking Constitution.
That's not what Trump and his attorneys said during the second impeachment. So you would agree that Trump and his attorneys were either lying.
Yeah. They lied. They definitely lied.
Sorry, I just wanted to hear. I'd never get to hear this. I just want to hear.
Yeah, they definitely lied.
Yeah, those Republicans lied Oh
Yeah.
yeah,
What?
and they should be mocked for it, right, and belittled.
$2.
I don't know why the left let them lie and get away with it.
$2
Well,
from
what do you mean
Testicle
let
Johnson.
them lie? I'm
They
sorry.
let
Go
them
ahead.
lie.
$2 from Testicle Johnson. Rabid L. Thank you for the $2.
What the hell?
What do you mean let them lie?
They let them get away with it.
That you need 67
Sure.
votes in the Senate in order to convict somebody. There was no letting them.
Well, no,
Republicans.
I don't think that should. So the setting the narrative is like one of the most important things when it comes to that, because it's a political prosecution, right? The fact that they let the Republican side say, no, he's about to get out of office. I don't know why we're doing this. It's too late in the game.
I don't know what you mean.
I don't
by
know
let.
why.
With love.
They carried the day. I don't.
Wait a minute. Okay, so
The narrative was set by the Republican side that the left is horrible at doing that.
All Atreides would have never let that happen.
how on earth? And I know Wick can be hard on Democrats. I'll ask both you and Wick. Is there in an impeachment, Wick, in an impeachment with a Republican Senate, do you believe in any timeline that there was an argument that the most brilliant leftist in the history of brilliant leftism could ever have made that would have convinced 17 Republican senators to convict Donald Trump in that second impeachment?
In the state of the ground now, today, with politics as it is, no.
Okay, yeah. So I'm actually with
hold on.
Wick there. I don't think that was a lack
I guess I
of.
should clarify.
Yeah.
The ruling or the voting wouldn't have changed. It's the fact is that the public would have been more aware that was a lie.
The public is aware. If you look at polling right now, like that's the thing. If you look at polling right now,
here's
Trump
the issue.
loses the polling. Most Americans do not believe that the president is entitled to the level of immunity.
So here's the issue, right? The fact is that if they are aware that you can be impeached and then convicted in the Senate as it stands today, there's no reason why they wouldn't be pushing for him to be done like that and then allow him to be prosecuted like criminally.
$5.
Because you're admitting that it can be done that way.
Yeah, $5 from Zephyr Hash to say, can an argument be made that constant legal prosecution of the president prevents them from doing their job?
Yes.
So that is an argument that Trump's attorneys make, but in the DC appellate court decision on this matter, they actually make a pretty convincing case for a couple of reasons. Number one, this is the first time we've ever seen anything like this in the 250 years of the United States. So there's no reason to believe that that prosecution of ex-presidents would be commonplace. Number two, there are legal protections against frivolous lawsuits. And number three, they use the example of jurors, right? So when you serve in a jury, you are subject to potential criminal prosecution based on your conduct as a juror, but that doesn't seem to deter people. Like juries are still pretty successful, right? And you're still expected to do your duty regardless. So even if there's a potential chilling effect, the DC appellate court makes, even if they grant that premise that, listen, presidents are going to have to fucking worry about post-presidential prosecution in the event that they're not entitled to absolute legal immunity, the DC appellate court's tough. Some jobs actually require risk, and if you want to be the most powerful man on earth or woman on earth for 4 to 8 years, then you're going to have to accrue some consequences potentially in the aftermath.
That will be the last word on SCOTUS,
Cool.
because
That's
if we walk without
unfortunate.
rhythm, we'll never attract the worm, gang.
Cool.
Can I have a final statement before I leave?
No,
You can
fuck
do
you,
that.
Artemis.
Halud comes.
You can. What? This is a problem.
You
If I
can
give
give
you
it-
a final
you can-
statement,
Hey,
he'll have a
yeah.
final statement. We'll
I
all
won't-
get
I
final
won't-
statements. There'll be
I
final
won't
statements
take
for
one.
next hour.
I won't take one. You
Okay,
can give,
go
I'd love
ahead.
to hear
Go ahead, Artemis.
So
You're cucking your next debate.
people don't let him utilize the DC appellate court. The DC appellate court oftentimes gets overturned by the Supreme Court almost everything they decide when it comes to the Republican Party and Donald Trump. I don't know why that was a decision, because there was no reason for the Supreme Court to take up the immunity case if the DC appellate court case was good in their eyes.
Great, grand, gang. If you're not here for Dune 2,
Got him.
get the hell out. Get the
You
hell
heard
out.
you heard Artemis say. You heard him say it. He wants Biden to be able to do whatever he wants. He thinks that Biden should be able. Yeah.
I thought you said you
Remember,
were going to have the last word.
That's not a final statement.
I
That's
knew
just a
it.
final fuck you, to
Yeah.
Artemis.
I knew he was going to do that. That's why I said
Okay, I'm going to kick you both out. Bye.
I
Alright.
triggered him like this.
Biden has forgotten the face of his father. Oh wait, that's the wrong franchise.
Wait, were you here for Dune 2 as well?
I was just gonna say that the movie was good. Did you have any beef with it? Out of curiosity.
Solid 8 out of 10. My only complaints were tied to there are two main complaints. One,
Sure.
the Harkonnens are cartoonishly evil, and they don't give any. But that's a problem with the book as well. So that was one complaint. And the second complaint was there was a lot of times where in the movie they portrayed like things like the general bodyguard, the top guy being like, "This isn't safe. We should get out," and then the person being like ignoring that advice totally, right? And I think that's always stupid when that happens. I think it's always
Are you
stupid.
talking about the one when you say?
Well,
the
I don't
top
want to
body?
spoil. I don't want to spoil
Oh,
it
gotcha.
too much. I'm trying to be vague for a reason, right? But if
The
you
book's been
remember
out for
near the
60
end,
years.
yeah, I understand. But you remember near the end where the top general of the emperor, the bodyguard, right, was like,
Yeah.
the Sardukan guy was like, "Hey, it's not safe here. We should probably leave to orbit, right?"
Oh, go back to orbit.
yeah,
Yeah,
go back to
yeah.
orbit. And he's like, "No, we're gonna stay here. We'll be fine."
Right.
No, leave to orbit. What are you doing? But yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll let you go. See you later, Josiah.
See you guys.
Bye-bye.
Okay.
God.
We have opened it up to be Dune 2. We're going to do Dune 2 now. Okay.
Yes.
None of this politics shit. We're going to do Dune 2. Okay. What are your thoughts, gang?
So
on the
I'll
Dune?
try and be non-spoilerish to an extent, but again, the book has been out for 60 years, so I'll be more kind with elements of the movie than I am with elements of the book, if that's fair.
Fair to
'Cause
me.
some of my criticisms just will be too vague if I don't.
Okay. Before we get into specifics, though, I just want to hear, did you guys enjoy the movie? Yes or no?
Broadly, I thought it was visually stunning. I would have enjoyed it more if I had never read the books, because then I wouldn't have been aware of so many of the departures from it. And I am not a purist in any way, shape, or form, but they destroyed so many of the narratives that I honestly don't know what they're going to do in the next movie that covers book 2 and 3, because they closed so many doors, and they closed so many doors in this movie that could have enriched it beyond. You said that the Harkonnen are cartoonish. I think the Fremen were way too cartoonish in this as well too, being painted as just religious extremists or like democratic elites, if you're looking at Chinese little northern group there, which I'd be actually really interested because
The
I think
Fremen
they're
as democratic elites? You think they were portrayed as that?
well, yeah,
I didn't get that
Shanny's
at
sitting there
all.
saying, "Oh, we're not like the people from," and maybe Zephyr will want to talk about this because maybe this is little shades of India here. They're like, "We're not like the people from the south. We're cultured people from the north who don't believe in all of that stuff. So you can go pray with them
That
if
I
you
think
want.
you're
and
I think
just
you're
chuckle
reaching,
here in our tent."
sir. I think you're reaching for something to be mad at in that
What?
case. I think that wasn't clear at all, right? It wasn't a comparison between the North and the South and
Oh
the
my
elites and the
g-
non-elites.
It was
Absolutely
explicit.
not.
The North and the South was explicit in this book or in this movie. And then when they go south, they just have like a giant room of people shouting
Let's
religiously, and then they go and kill
let's
everyone
go
in
to
the north.
everyone else's opinion before we get into the arguments. Zephyr, did you like Dune 2, the movie? We can't hear you. Okay, while we're waiting for him to fix his stuff, we can't hear you at
Best
all.
origin take ever.
Yeah. We'll go to Origin. Origin, did you like Dune 2, the movie?
I haven't seen it, but I
Why
have
are
seen
you
the
here?
first one.
GTFO.
So
GTFO.
Why
I'll
are you
fucking
here?
Talk shit about
Void.
it because it
Void.
sucks. The original one, the Lynch one, is actually amazing.
Last
It has
week.
flaws, but it's actually ballsy and it's colorful. And the Harkonnens are actually kind of, yeah, they're cartoonish, but at least they have some energy to them and they're actually fun.
But you haven't
Whereas
seen
the
the
new one
movie?
is just
How can you
ugh.
compare the two? You have no point of contrast unless you're
I've
just
seen the
comparing it
first
to the
the first one
2000.
of this. I've seen the first part, not the second.
Yeah, so how are you going to compare them? How do you know it's the best?
Because I know it's gonna, just based on the first film, I can tell it's gonna, that the second part is gonna continue with the same tone and the same storyline and how it's all shot and everything.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now. What are your thoughts?
Okay, Dune 2. It's a pretty good movie. Normally, on my scale, I would rate it an 8 out of 10. But seeing that Wick calls it an 8 out of 10 and an excellent On Wick scale, it's probably closer to like 7 out of 10. I did not like it as much as you. I wouldn't call it excellent.
No, I thought it was an excellent. Look, 8 out of 10 is excellent by any measure. Okay. Let me give you 𝕾𝖍𝖎𝖙𝖘𝖍𝖔𝖜's take on it, okay? And then we can maybe discuss this. And I want people to kind of take this in. I want you to as I read this tweet, I want you to internalize it. I want you to consider it. I want you to ponder it. I want you to really kind of get, I guess, the ambiance of it, right? And you'll see what I mean when I read the tweet. Let's go. Let's do this. Okay, this is from 𝕾𝖍𝖎𝖙, and this was this morning at 8:40 a.m. Okay, Dune 2 was maybe the best sci-fi movie I've ever seen. I was moved multiple times by the stunning visuals, Chalamet and Zendayas performances, and its commentary on white savior stories and colonialism. It's eerie how much you won't stop thinking about Palestine in the theater.
If I can start, if I may start.
Please.
I don't hate that take as much as you guys probably do. But the problem is 𝕾𝖍𝖎𝖙𝖘 is it vigilant or vigilant or whoever? She's highly, like, she does not have curls in her brain. Like, she's completely smooth brain. Her analysis level on this movie and the Israel-Palestine war pretty much encapsulates that she did not analyze the movie at a deeper level, the level that it's supposed to be. There are themes of faith. There are themes of how far we need to go to achieve our freedom and things like that. So there are parallels for sure, but there are parallels with every war. The themes of faith, the themes of believing in a Messiah.
But they're in a desert. Obviously, it's the Palestinian
Exactly,
conflict.
and
Obviously, it's a desert. Duh.
Smoother than the fucking worm.
So I think she kind of loses the plot when the Palestinians leave southern Arrakis and murder everyone on the planet and then the rest of the galaxy. So if we want to carry this analogy forward, if the Palestinians win, they're going to wipe out Israel and then carry on to make the rest of the planet Palestinian as well, too.
I think that, well, that's what I said. I mean, like, yes, you can draw parallels about a group of outsiders co-opting a movement in order to achieve their political goals and aims, not caring about how many of them die in the process. I think there are parallels that can be drawn. It's just probably not the ones that she would draw. I think, and she's not the only one. The reason I bring this up is because she's not the only one who I've seen make this take, right? Like, that this was a clear... there's a clear parallel. The Fremen are the good guys and they're Palestine, and then you have the Empire and Harkonnen being Israel, and they're the bad guys. And it's look, gang, can we not just watch fucking movies, okay, about sci-fi shit without trying to make everything about the latest thing? Right? It's like watching Godzilla from 1985, right? The reboot, and thinking, oh man, the Godzilla must be like Israel, and then Tokyo is like Palestine, right?
I disagree with you there, Wick. Like, I genuinely think that, movies have deeper meanings. They have a lot to say, and we should be able to analyze movies and look at movies through like a modern
this ain't
lens.
It. No, I get you that they have themes that we can discuss and talk about, but when it comes to Dune, this and the Palestine-Israel conflict, there are not parallels here, right?
Yeah,
not really.
Not parallel, yeah.
You have to stretch pretty hard.
More
right?
offended.
And either side can stretch it in either direction. It's like The Handmaid's Tale, right? When they tried to co-opt that. And it clearly was not designed as an indictment of the United States and of gender, right? It was, what was it, Brazil or something like that? It was a South American country that she was using as inspiration when she wrote that. And but you get the most recent, if anything, they're the ones who are acting more like the 𝕵𝖍𝖎𝖙 when they try and take these things and co-op it for their own things, right? Because the Jesuit were using religion. It wasn't even that they took this faith that was already on the planet with these prophecies and subverted them. They injected those
Yeah.
prophecies in
It
themselves.
was part of the greater
right?
plan to kind of bring a
Bring
pratt
the
the
𝕾𝖍𝖎𝖙𝖘𝖍𝖔𝖜.
Yeah,
yeah,
the
I don't know how to say
𝕾𝖍𝖎𝖙𝖘𝖍𝖔,
the
right?
yeah.
It's an indictment of religion in general, and
Right.
he does. Herbert eventually does deconstruct the hero aspect of Paul in the later novels, and if you read interviews with him, he was very explicit about that because he did not like how much hero worship of Paul came out of the first one. So you could make some arguments. I think the first part of our argument, when you talk about white saviors, I think it applies, but I would maybe take out the white part. I mean, it obviously maps based on the
Rabbit.
movie here, right? But it was more of a critique of heroes and people's faith in them in general, as opposed to the white savior aspect that she's trying to emphasize.
Rabbit, you're
So
thinking
that
about this way too
Hmm.
complexly for 𝕾𝖍𝖙. She's not thinking about it in those complex context terms. She's just pandering, and I'm more
She's looking at it
offended.
from a
I'm
straightforward
more
oppressor-oppressee kind of.
I'm more offended that she said that that's the best science fiction film she's ever seen. It's like, really? Not
Base
2001:
take.
A Space
Origin,
Odyssey? Not
Origin,
2001:
what
A
is
Space
your
Odyssey?
best? What's the best sci-fi movie you've ever seen?
2001: A Space Odyssey, Stanley Kubrick. It's also my favorite film of all time.
This
So
is
that right
absolute.
there.
That's
Origin
absolutely the
is a
wrong
very simple
answer. To be
Blasphemy.
clear.
Nope,
Blade
that's
Runner
not the wrong
2049.
answer.
Okay, $2. Okay, there's a lot of $2 super chats I gotta read apparently.
Okay.
$2 from Testicle Johnson, Zephyr L, Rabbit L, Origin L, Zephyr Hash for $2, Testy Mega L, L Infinity, I win, and Testicle Johnson for $2, Testy W in chat. You guys should continue giving me money to read these stupid ass.
I've already
quotes.
won. I don't need to give you more money.
But I wanted to. We're gonna ignore that shit take you just made, Origin, for the time being.
Like Tears in the Rain.
It's not
yeah.
the shit take. It's
It's
the only
it's a
take.
really
It's
bad take.
2001: A Space Odyssey.
That
is
was a
the
boring ass movie.
Well, you're
It was
a boring ass movie,
movie.
Wick.
Okay, I didn't like it. Not gonna lie.
Oh,
Definitely not the best
did you
movie.
need more explosions? Did you need more Michael
Yes,
Bay to
I
get your
needed
attention?
something to happen, right? For it to be less up its own ass. Okay.
Dave.
Yeah, it's very overrated.
To
Interesting,
give
Dave.
Origin some credit, yes, 2001 is ahead of its time. It's a technical achievement, technical marvel in terms of movie
From a
making. But it
cinematic
definitely does not
perspective,
hold up
I
in
get
modern.
you, but from a storytelling perspective, no.
I wouldn't put
That's
it above
'cause
even Clockwork
I-
Orange is already easily better. Just off the top of my head, Clockwork Orange is way
You
better
need to
than
get the
everybody
fuck
else.
out, Rabbit, before you and I throw fists.
Yeah.
Okay, but
If you hang around long
recenter.
enough.
Let's recenter.
Okay.
Because I want to
yeah.
talk about Dune today. Because if we don't talk with rhythm,
Yes.
we're not going to attract the worm. Okay.
All right.
The worm being
Shia-Lute.
viewers and donors. Let me just kind of sell everyone on why I think that this was a great cinematic experience. Dune 2. Great. It was excellent. I thought the visualization of things like the Harkonnen planet when the color palette changed, right? And simply the portraying of, what was his name? The bald one, the young one.
𝕍𝖎𝖏.
Fade.
Yeah, thank you, Fade. His portrayal, I wish that he had more screen time. He was portrayed as a psychopath, and he absolutely was.
They
However,
mentioned that 6 times in the movie. Literally,
yes.
he's a psychopath.
Oh, he's a psycho.
they didn't need to say it once, just based on how
They didn't.
he
Yeah, they
acted.
didn't say it
They
once.
said it
That's
6
stupid.
times.
I know. So again, my criticism of them being heavy-handed on the evilness still applies. But I think that there were hints, at least in the movie, that there was something more to this Fade guy, right? There were hints that he was more of an honorable kind of, still evil, right? But there was more to him than that I would have liked to explore, right? I would have liked to have explored in the show. Unfortunately, they didn't get there. But I think that it was these little nuggets of interactions. I thought the way they handled the different factions among the Fremen, for example, was excellently done, and how they showcased the internal fightings and divisions within them. I know that Rabbit made the case earlier that this was the Northern Elites, but I think that's retarded.
I was about to say, what are the differences between the factions? Please,
the religiosity,
illustrate them for me.
religiosity, and the willingness to rely on foreign actors and foreign waiting for a messiah versus the people who think that they could do it now. I think that was the
we
main
don't believe in
difference.
these superstitions and blah blah. That's what
Exactly.
I'm getting at, right? Is she's sitting there in her little tent with her friends.
Yeah, but that doesn't map onto the Northern Elites versus Southern. Yeah, it just doesn't. Not unless you really stretch it, which you are.
She straight up says it. She talks about the
Just
people
because she
from-
uses the
she's
words
like,
North and South
"You-
doesn't mean
you
it
didn't
applies to the
notice
American
his
North and
accent?
South.
He's from the South. He's one of those uncultured religious people. We'll sit here with our coffees and laugh at them.
I think in the movie, what she meant was that the people in the South, they're first of all fundamentalists. Number two, they are pretty far away from the war, like as far as you could be, so they don't really know the struggles of how it's like fighting with the Harkonnens every day, trying to survive, kind of thing. That's what I got out of that particular segment.
It's because they're just trying to stay alive in general. They live in the harsh climate of the South, right? Which kind of maybe maps onto the fact
the
that
Fremen they show in the movie
people
aren't
in
really
New York
struggling
have
to
it so
survive.
easy.
They
Yeah.
show in the movie that the Fremen really aren't struggling to survive, except for the Harkonnen part. Like they have plenty of water. They have they're happy with the resources that they have.
Right? They figured it out, is what it is.
Right.
It's a hard existence, but they've become hard people,
Right.
and thus they can do it, and that carries through all the way into like book 7, so of the main timeline there, right? Because they eventually make fun of the Fremen way like 5,000 years in the future, because they've basically become like a acting troupe, and so it's the decline of those people. But
What is your? I'm just curious. What is y'all's favorite scene in the movie? What do you think was the best? If you had to,
opening scene was so
pick
good.
a scene to watch, right? Like which would it be?
which one or two? We're still
In
talking
2, and we're still talking about Dune 2.
The opening scene was, I think, the best part of the movie in terms of how, like,
Really?
because initially they are carrying the dead guy from the first movie back to their camp, and they're suddenly attacked by like this whole fleet of Harkonnen, and they have to use their smarts and use their tactics to and overcome them. When the I don't know if I want to get into spoilers. Wait, you are the
we can a little spoilers, okay? Just a little though.
when the bodies are falling.
The bodies at the floor.
No, that was fun. No, that's a strong contender. What do you think, Rabbit?
I think Giddy Prime, the arena scene, was amazing. One, because of the change in the color palette that you'd already met before. I thought it was a great trick of the cinematography to strip all of that out. And I think it's one of the few times you actually get to see character development and some life out of the Harkonnens, when you see the interplay between the Baron testing Fade, and you can see even amongst themselves that actual like willingness to turn on each other as well too, but just a little bit, right? Like he's clearly his favorite, but his favorite isn't completely immune from him putting the boot down a little bit, some machinations, and testing him to make sure that his metal is right. That's true to the book. It's true to all the other movie characterizations that have come out, and I'm glad that they kept that here in such a visually stunning way.
I do have a problem with that scene. I like most of it, like 90% of it. Again, I want to ask Wick's permission if I can.
Go for it. Do it.
Okay. My problem with the introduction of 𝕍𝖎 in that scene is he's introduced as a psychopath, and he kills 3 people, 2 of them who are dead already, and 1 of whom is already dying. And they use that to show, oh my God, he's such a great warrior. Like nobody can overcome him. And he actually gets angry at his Baron Harkonnen for how dare you even give me one person who wasn't drugged or wasn't already dying.
Here,
Like,
let me push back against this though, because I
Yeah.
don't think that's what happened at all. I understand that he did get mad at the Baron afterwards for putting him in that position, right? But if you watch the scene, if you watch how he when it's clear that the other guy is not drugged, he removes his shield to make it a fair fight, right? And even when the I guess the handlers around the arena come in to try to mess with him, he tells them to back off. It's clear that Fade wants a fair fight, right? That he relishes this kind of thing, this combat, this. I think this was one of the signs that there was something deeper to him than just being a psychopathic sadist, right? Even though that
There's a
was
code.
absolutely there, right?
Right.
I think that this shows a level of wanting to keep things on a level playing field and rise to the challenge. Now, obviously, he was upset at the Baron in the next scene, but he wasn't as upset as perhaps I think that was more like a loving upsetness. Does that make sense?
Again, perfectly understandable. My issue is in terms of just his fighting abilities. I'm not talking about his code, just in terms of how capable a fighter he is. That puts into question his sort of entire life for me. Like, has he just been brought up thinking that he's the best warrior when actually throughout his entire life he's just been fighting drugged, drugged and drunk people, and now he's being pushed into the fire, and now at
That's
the
fair.
end, like he
I
has
think
to
that
fight against.
the future scenes, the concurrent not the concurrent, the scenes directly after that, with how he changes how they're handling the war on Dune, just puts that to bed, though, right? He's clearly able to turn it around and be effective in a way his predecessor wasn't.
Okay,
So,
can
yeah.
someone tell me what did the young guy do that the older guy couldn't?
Who, Raban? Or
Yeah.
Fade? So
In the
Fade-
movie, not in the books, in the movie. I
Yeah,
just
well,
want to clarify that for Rabbit.
well, in the movie or in the books?
Yeah, in the
Sorry.
movie, what did Fade do to locate the Fremen that Raban couldn't do?
Well, and that's a great question, right? Because when you look at the two, Fade is supposed to be the calculating one who is intelligent. They try and show that a little bit, right? When his uncle is the Baron is explaining why he did what he did, and Raban is definitely just brutal, over the top, doesn't think. And so I think that question is very poignant because you would think, what would Raban do as a tactic and wipe out every single siege in the north? Seems pretty high on the list of just
Right.
brute
Well,
force, straightforward
I think
tactics.
this is
side of it, right?
is
So-
answered when you get to another scene where the Fremen leaders were talking with each other, right? Or actually after the first artillery shelling of the Stell, I think that's what it's called, Stell. I'm not again.
Siege?
Siege. Thank you. Terminology
Siege
escapes
tower.
me, right?
Yeah.
The leader of the Siege makes mention they didn't even come at us like warriors, right? They just bombed us from afar, right? There was nothing honorable in it. Whereas in the scenes with the previous leader, not Fade, but the other guy,
Raban.
you saw him landing the troops, going in, right? Like getting personally involved in the combat like that, etc., right? And you saw how that they just got crushed. They got like destroyed. I think this shows that Fade was willing to put aside honor culture to just be more effective, right? And he's like, well, we don't care about that shit, right? We're just gonna win, and I don't give a shit about the optics of it. I don't give a shit about whether my warriors think I'm strong or whatever. We'll just bomb the fuck out of them until they die.
I thought the entire problem was that Raban didn't even know where the Fremen were.
Yeah, there is just
That was part of the
So-
problem.
and that's true to the
Because
book
I
as well, too,
believe
right?
that if Raban knew that there's a siege under that mountain or under that rock, he would have totally bombed it.
Mm.
Like
Well,
that, at least that's what I got out of
it
the
wasn't
character.
clear. It wasn't clear from the books, or not from the books, from the movie at least, how Fade
Right.
found them. But
Yeah, I
apparently
just want to
he
make sure
did.
that I wasn't the only one.
It was
who
in
had
the
this problem.
script. That's
Yeah.
how he.
The
That's
plot
how he found them. It
dictated.
was in the script.
Right.
Yeah.
The plot dictated he just came, somehow located it, and then just bombed it. So
Well, and that's why that's one of my big concerns with this overall, right? Is they're just so heavy-handed, and a lot of the heavy-handedness they do really is. If it was a standalone movie, then, and again, if I had never read the books, it wouldn't bother me so much. But going into this next round of movies, or at least the one movie that's guaranteed, where they do 2 and 3, I don't know what road they're going to follow, especially since in the books and in every other movie, like Paul and Chani are not this antagonistic towards each other. Quite the opposite, right? And Chani isn't quite the Mary Sue in the book that she is here. She's definitely portrayed as a very strong warrior and very resolute. But that's all in direct support of Paul.
Doobie,
And
hold
what
on,
they're doing
Doobie. If
here-
you want to talk shit and stuff, come on the show. It's an open stream, right? Like we're just talking Dune. So if you have issues, right, please jump on in. Anyway, continue.
Yeah,
Who does
get
he have
in here.
issues with?
No, Doobie, you're dumb. You're dumb. Go back to reading Sanderson. You're not ready for a Herbert conversation.
Who is
Shit.
Sanderson?
Origin.
Sanderson's like some
Origin.
okay.
What I want you to
he's an
do.
okay author.
Okay. Origin, what I want you to do is I want you to go and broaden your horizons a little bit so you can keep up, right? You can like or dislike Sanderson, but if you don't know him and you claim to like fantasy and sci-fi, I think that you've been under a rock for the last 20 years. Okay.
You've forgotten the face of your
Oh,
father.
I haven't read him. I have no idea. I have no opinion on him. That's why I'm asking.
Yeah, you should remain with no opinion.
But let's
As I will.
yeah, let's just Doobie, come on.
That's a little
Let me
hard.
that's not true either, Doobie, but he's very strong. He's a very good author. I'll say this. I think that when it comes to where they're going to go in the future, I think it's fairly clear that they're going to follow the main plot point of the story, right? Which is they get off Arrakis and they start causing problems in the rest of the Empire. I think that was very clear at the end that this was going to happen. I thought they were very, again, what I liked about the movie is how they portrayed the Bene Gesserit scheming and how it kind of bit them in the ass at the end, at the very in a very real way. And
Did it though?
Huh?
Did it though?
I think
Did
that
it?
like yes and no,
Me too.
because again the one of the closing lines by the Reverend Mother or whoever was there are no sides in this. However, I think it was very clear that her and her the Bene Gesserit in general did not expect it to go this way. Does that make sense? Again, it's been a while since I read
yeah.
the book, but
Yeah. Jessica
Yeah.
fucked their timeline, right? And so now
Yeah,
they're
Jessica
they're
is
in
supposed to
full
report to her
damage
daughter.
control mode right now. That's why they're collecting sperm samples from everyone, and they're just trying to figure out what the fuck's gonna happen in like the next 100 years. I got to go real quick. The one last point that I really have on this is because I keep talking about these doors being closed. I'm not a purist. I just need to see the payoff. I need to see the payoff. I need to understand why he chose this direction with the script, and if he can give me something as entertaining as what already exists in the source material, I'll forgive him for that, because I think you can have different interpretations side by side. You can have the 1984 movie, which was great. You can have the 2000 sci-fi series, the TV one, which is great in its own criticisms for that too, but and I think this can be great in its own way as well too, if there is that payoff. And I am going
You're
in
here to hear.
highly suspicious that it
You heard it
won't,
here first,
but I would
gang.
love to be wrong.
Rabid needs to see the money shot before he can say anything.
Show me
here,
the
right?
money.
He needs to see the payoff. Thank you for coming and talking about it. I'll see you later, Rabid. Bye.
Yeah, thanks. See you guys.
Bye.
Question for you, Zephyr, right? What so we talked about the best parts of the movie. What were the worst? What do you think was the
Oh.
weakest points of these
The
of the show?
ending.
The ending, really?
The ending did not. How do I put this? The entire first movie, one of the main threads across the entire first movie was that Paul cannot be sure about his visions of the future. The visions can be misleading. Right at the end, he had the emperor on his knees. He had the houses who refused to acknowledge his ascendancy to the throne. And instead of him being doubtful about his visions, instead of thinking that, okay, maybe I should ask the emperor to convince the houses to yield to me, he decides to bomb them without I say he did not explore all the options before going nuclear.
Well, there was at least how I interpreted it is his like the point of decision had been passed when he went to the South, right? If you remember in the show, or in the movie, I should say, he was very hesitant. He didn't want to go south. He was worried about what would happen if you go south. So he had all these visions of all the horror that he would be unleashing on the world. This was true in the first book, and it became even first movie, I should say, and became even more true in the second movie. And they really hit that home as he did not want to cross that line, right? And he was very worried about crossing that line. But once he did, right? Once he did, and he drank the water of life, right, and had those visions, I think it indicated a turning point. And I think that this change you saw in him at the end was indicative of the director showing, and the scriptwriters showing, that he is no longer that person that we were rooting for in book one. He was no longer, or the show one. He was no longer the same Paul Atreides that we were rooting for at the beginning of the show. It's to show he had crossed the Rubicon, and he was no longer that doubting Thomas, kind of worried, death of certainty kind of character, but was more like had given in to the prophecy, if you will, and went forward.
So again, I completely understand if the worm juice turned him quote unquote evil. That is
that's not what turned him evil. Okay, it wasn't that magic.
Like, I know it's not exactly evil, but like turned him like does not care about saving lives anymore. He cares about, I don't know what he cares about exactly. He cares about like a prophecy. He cares about like
well, the worm juice made him. The worm juice made it so it was no longer cloudy. Like the visions weren't cloudy anymore, and they became something that he could see, in his opinion, for certain, right?
And I understand that one of the themes of the movie is like false messiahs, right? That the messiahs who believe they know everything, but they probably don't. And that's my only contention, or that is why I did not like the last scene, is because, okay, one more point. Why does he still need to marry the emperor's daughter if he's still going to war with the other houses?
Legitimacy. That's a popular.
But the houses don't acknowledge his legitimacy regardless.
But the people, it's the people that would have to acknowledge his legitimacy. So the people, the empire's opinions are important, and one of the traditional ways, at least in the kind of feudal system, that you gain legitimacy is by marrying into the bloodline, right? And that was his way of gathering legitimacy, not just potentially amongst the great houses, but also among the people the great houses ruled. So yeah.
I agree with you, but I don't think that was explained in the movie, or in the movie they made it seem like the way you bring peace is you marry the emperor's daughter, you offer a diplomatic deal.
Well, he already knew there was going to be no peace. He knew that it was going to bring war. He knew war was coming.
I agree with you. See, that's why it's so hard talking about this movie, because what you are saying is correct, but what I'm saying is
incorrect. Yes, I agree. I agree. We've solved it.
The first movie gave us reasons for why it should also be incorrect, right? The first movie was about false visions, misleading visions.
No, right? And even though movie was about unclear visions, right? That's not false or misleading, but unclear. He was plagued by doubt because he could not see the golden path in front of him. He was too cloudy. He wasn't able to see more than 5 meters out, and he was having trouble interpreting what he was seeing. In the second movie, he overcomes that problem or that liability. Now, the themes morality-wise in the story itself, the first show shows us it is basically a foreshadowing of what's to come. He sees the blood and the rivers of blood that are going to spill from his hands, and he is afraid. He doubts it. He sees it as evil. He sees it as he's a monster. He doesn't know what he should do, if he should follow that path. He was scared of going south, like I said. But after his eyes are opened, we see that he is like seeing beyond that, and to the ends, if you will, and the morality shifts.
He believes that he sees through the end, right? Like,
yeah, he sees the golden path, and he knows, quote unquote, in his mind that all this will be necessary and
So
justified
he
because of the
loses all
ending.
self-doubt.
And yes, and that is the moral of the story, or not, or that's what the question that the story poses, right? Do the ends justify the means, right? How much should we trust in Messiah figures, right? How much of our morality should we put to the side because we see the greater good in the future? Like, these are some of the stories that the questions that the story asks, and I think that a lot of people are having trouble. At least again, with the takes I've seen online, a lot of people are struggling with the idea that the protagonist of a story might be the villain, right? Or might
Right.
be a bad guy.
I agree with that. I agree with that. Like, at least at the end, he is a villain. He might be doing
yeah, and
things because
it
he
leaves it
sees
up
like
to
a
the audience,
peaceful
I
end.
think, in a real way to interpret, right? Like, is he the bad guy, or is he doing what is necessary, or is he both, right? Sometimes you got to have a bad guy to get good things done, right? At least in some people's mind. But yeah, there's a lot to it, okay, gang? And we are running out of time here a little bit, and I know the other segment went super long, so I'm trying to give you guys more time, but I do need to go at some point. Last final thoughts from you both.
Yeah, again, I've been thinking about one thing I'll give this movie is that I have been thinking about it nonstop over the past weekend.
It's a great movie.
I've written down all the all the problems that I have, and there's like 9 problems that I have with the movie. Obviously, we can't go into all of them.
Sure.
I've discussed some of the big ones with you today. And yeah, thanks for giving me that different
Absolutely,
outlook. I
man.
think that definitely improves the thoughts that I had about the movie. It probably raises up to like
An 8?
7.5 on your scale.
Okay. No, but thanks for being here, Zephyr. Always a pleasure. Origin, final thoughts?
Yeah, David Lynch's Dune is still the OG Dune, and I just looked up Brandon Sanderson, and he looks boring.
Origin.
Hello, boring.
Thank you for being here.
No problem.
See you later. Well, gang. What a robust discussion on Dune. I'm excited for the third movie. I'll confess this, gang, and maybe this is a surprise to some of you, but I've only read the original Dune. I haven't read any of the any of the follow-ups or the sequels. I'm familiar with the story arc. I'm familiar with how that goes. Dune was one of the more interesting sci-fis I've read, but would I say it's the best sci-fi out there? Absolutely not. But it was fun. It was enjoyable to read, and the movies are fun and enjoyable. I remember seeing the old one from, I think, the 80s, right? Maybe early 90s. I thought that was great. Was it the 80s? I'm not sure, but I remember growing up watching it, and I thought the worms were cool, right? The story is robust. There are a lot of themes that it explores, and let me tell you this. Anyone who's watching a movie and tries to stretch it into being an allegory for the current thing is insufferable, and I hate them. They're bad people. They're annoying to me. Don't do that. Not everything has to be about the current thing. Like, if anything, what the true message of Dune is don't let women plan the future, okay? They're going to fuck it all up, okay? Women are bad. That's the messaging from Dune, okay? Right? Like, that's the 𝕾𝖍𝖎𝖙 ultimate, 5-brain take there, is that women will fuck it all up, and you don't let them fuck things up like that. They're bad. Okay. Gang, we have kind of run out of time. I did want to go into the anti-Semitism stuff, but gang, we got other chances to go into that. We'll talk about it a little Tuesday, tomorrow. What we got coming up? Well, tomorrow we're going to be doing Collins with Madame Genevieve, and that'll be fun. So tune in for that at 6 p.m. Eastern. Wednesday, we are going to have on Not So Erudite Maya Luna. We're going to have Brittany Simon. We're going to have Rashad Crenshaw. We're going to have Counterpoints. Who else are we going to have? There was one more. I'm blanking on the name. Let me look it up. $2 from Zephyr Hash. 𝕵𝖎𝖎𝖙 should have kept the right to abort. Hey. Yeah, give me a second. Let me look up because I don't want to forget them, right? That would be rude. Azzy. How could I forget Azzy? Azzy is going to be on, and we're going to be talking about Coomer culture and porn. Okay? So tune in Wednesday, 6 p.m. for that. And then on Thursday, we're going to have Kevin Logan to debate with Quibbles Over Coffee on Israel and Palestine. Should be a great show. Should be a great debate. Tune in, gang. It'll be fun. I'll see you guys tomorrow. 𝕾𝖍𝖎𝖙𝖘𝖍𝖔𝖜 says, well, yeah, well, stay mad. You saw a story that humanized the other side of colonization. Sucks to be the Harkonnen. 𝕾𝖍𝖎𝖙𝖘𝖍𝖔, you do realize that the story is about white people or outsiders co-opting people's struggle in order to score their own political points, right? Not caring how many of them die in the process. You do realize that's what the story is about, right? Yeah, I don't know if that makes you feel any better, right? But, yo, you're the Atreides. You are Paul in this story. And Paul is not the good guy. Anyway, you enjoy being a fascist piece of shit. Have fun with your authoritarian friends. We are going to raid out. We are going to go to 𝕵𝖎𝖙𝖘𝖍𝖔𝖜. Make sure you spam those emotes. Have a great night. I'll be light alongside the guy who light himself on fire, and 𝕾𝖍𝖎𝖙𝖘𝖍𝖔𝖜. Bye.